The Odyssey and PTSD have many points in common. The Odyssey characters show PTSD symptoms, and PTSD traces all the way back to Homer's brilliant novel. Drinking and substance abuse is a common symptom and problem that people who struggle with PTSD often show. When Odysseus and his men leave a 10-year Trojan War, the first thing they do is go into a city and make more war. On another island, lotus eaters make them eat lotus fruit that make them not want to go home. Their only desire is to stay on the island and eat more lotus. All memories of war and the hopes to go home are gone from their heads, and drugs and alcohol are a way to forget everything. Soldiers Roy and John C., who fought at age 19 in the Vietnam War, have similar encounters with drugs and alcohol. Quote, "The loss of the eye hit him hard, but he was told he was fine emotionally and sent on his way. Within weeks, John was heavily drinking and using drugs. Within a few years, he had numerous driving arrests. John showed signs of being okay. But as this image says, it isn't about what's wrong with you, like a substance abuse problem. It's all about what has happened to you in the past." He had multiple surgeries on his eye, and after 1 year of intense military service, they believed he was fine, as if it was only 1 year. So he was released from the hospital, but straight after this, he directed himself straight towards drugs. This is a common thing that happens with many militants. Roy, who also served at age 19 in the Vietnam War, was diagnosed with PTSD 30 years after he ended his career. By then, he was a successful broadcaster who had made a living out of news reporting. But a sudden depression wave struck him hard and changed his life. He began a life in which he, quote, "drank too much and avoided people at all costs." Roy lived this way for about 8 years, end quote. After this, he found help. Here is an article on John and Roy's success story. This article is on John's success story. If you read about it, here he talks about how he battled through his drug and substance abuse problem. This is Roy. Here is his article and his success story. Loss of self-control and a fighting mindset is another thing that PTSD patients trigger with. Odysseus and his men have been making bad decisions ever since they leave the Trojan War. First, they rage a city and essentially make more war, and then act like savages with their behavior. This savage-like behavior is mandatory in a warlike environment. Being a soldier, you have to take orders and charge through a battlefield, even if this means traveling with a big tank, like this one. Imagining traveling and driving this big tank in a battlefield, having to run people over, and within 24 hours being home, having to drive a small Volkswagen car. Running over and shooting people in this case is common. This behavior back home is criminal and can get you kicked out of society. With us, that means jail. You cannot blame these people and soldiers, though. Just like Odysseus and his men, soldiers nowadays suffer with these same conditions. Roy, as we encounter him again, says you cannot take a 19-year-old brain and subject it to the constant threat of deaths. For example, here is an image of soldiers having to find their comrade dead on the floor and trying to carry him, but also carrying guns and armors trying to protect their own lives. Also, to add on, he says you cannot have this or an injury by a rocket fire. Something like this may just explode under you. You have to live through this and then come home and change your mindset, not losing self-control. In his words, you cannot expect people not to be affected by all of this. The savage behavior that Odysseus and his men had to show in the Trojan War is not acceptable in the community, like what they did to the town right after they left Troy. Here is an article and video about a World War II commander who suffered from PTSD, especially loss of self-control and drug and alcohol abuse. Thanks for watching!